today I have two distinguished investors on my side here, and I'm very glad to be with them because I'm going to learn some things from them. They are very experienced in their work. I first introduce Miss Scarlett Chen. She's the managing partner of Verge HealthTech. She is a successful investor with at least 4 unicorns. And she also invests globally. So I'm sure we have a lot to learn from her. And then, not least, Mr. Emmanuel. He is the principal of Pentepebble. He was an entrepreneur before coming to make investments. So he brought his company, biotech company, into an IPO. So his experience is from the entrepreneur side. And currently, he's the principal in Pentepebble. And he also makes investments, early stage investments. Both of them make early stage investments globally. So they have a global view, which is very important. Okay, so I will not introduce more because I won't do them justice. So that they should introduce themselves in detail, and then we'll start with the panel discussion. Okay, so let me have Miss Scarlett Chen.
Sure, I'm Scarlett Chen, managing partner at Verge HealthTech Fund. We are the world's first health tech fund that is focused on the global scale, health tech only, and also at the early stage. We at Verge really focus on just 2 types of investment opportunities. The first one is scalable technologies that solve large unmet needs in health. And the second type is platforms with millions and millions of users and lots of data. And for us, we take a global view because we feel that that's really important.
Thank you. So now we have Emmanuel to introduce us. Introduce himself.
Yeah, my name is Emmanuel. I'm with Pentepebble. And Pebble, as we say, it's really a smaller incubation-based, we call ourselves active angel investing. And so Pebble is going to be a joint venture with Tiger Med. Coming up soon, we're going to do an accelerator just for the Greater Bay Area, basically helping local professors go from 0 to 1, which is my own experience. I started a company with a few professors back in college, and that was a great experience, and that's really all I know. I only know the first part of it, and Scarlett's really the real expert in getting all the way to products and everything. So like getting through regulatory and everything. So I am just passionate about active angel. I'm usually the first one in my investments. And I have a lot of companies here today. I've got Opharmic, I've got Mixcare, I've got Ren Studios as well here. Lots of friends here today, so I'm glad to see you all.
Thank you. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Jonathan Chee, head of venture acceleration in CUHK. I'm currently managing a portfolio of 36 companies from various technology to biotech, and have groomed 136 companies within 7 years. So today I'm very happy to be here. So let's start because of time. There's a question that I'm always confused. What is health tech? What is med tech? Is there any difference? Biotech? So maybe I let the experts talk about it. So can I have Scarlett?
Sure, it's a great question. It's actually the most important question to ask before we really dive in. So health tech, so we at Verge, we loosely define health tech as technology that really amplifies any aspect of the current healthcare system. And it's very different from biotech, and it's very different from medtech, right, in the traditional sense. Health tech, includes different subsectors such as digital health, digital therapeutics, telehealth, telespecialty, telemedicine, IoT devices that really connect, that are not standalone, but also connect data with people, with physicians through interfaces. Lots of things which are data-based, such as data imaging, and also, this actually goes into many sectors which are the non-traditional sectors in health. So, health tech overlaps with biotech and medtech, but it's not the traditional ones, right? And health tech is very multidisciplinary, meaning it operates not just in the healthcare space, but also in the internet space, TMT, direct to consumer. So it's a very complex field.
And I think, just to add on to that, another differentiator I think about health tech, biotech, and medtech is that generally health tech companies are earlier revenue generating, right? And they generally don't have to go through a whole regulatory process, FDA and NMPA. There's less development risk in health tech type companies. And so it's a very different basket when I'm thinking about portfolio construction, the type of returns, the stage of exit, and also the type of exit is also very different for a health tech company. So we were just chatting over this weekend, really, Scarlett and I, and we were thinking about the valuations that we're expecting for health tech companies. And you just said something very great about Asia. And why don't you share a bit more about?
It's actually more about average is about 100 million or so for health tech companies here to exit, right? And the valuation levels in the U.S. are actually much higher. So we see different valuation levels between biotech, between medtech, and between health tech, and also across different regions.
Wow. So if you are an entrepreneur, listen carefully where you want to bring your company to higher valuation overseas. Okay, I will not talk because of time. Let me try to go into the topic. How about current trends and opportunities in health tech? Since we know health tech is so important, so let's hear from who would like to start? Oh, Scarlett.
Okay. So I tend to dumb things down a little bit. So if I were to generalize about healthcare, it's really a service that somebody provides to somebody else in a setting. Right, so it's actually 4 different elements. And if you were to just take a step back and look at what's going on in the world, it's actually, there are changes which are happening in all these 4 elements. So the service is changing. Who provides it is changing. Who receives the treatment is changing. And also the setting, right, is changing. It's no longer the clinical setting. You can do many things at home as well. So taking a step back, it's really, changing care models. It's changing business models, and there's also changing infrastructure, right? That we're observing. So it's the whole space is actually moving very quickly, and also it's fueled by changes in internet, right? By TMT. So there are a lot of things kind of pushing healthcare into the digital sense. So that's in a way what I'm seeing right now.
Any comments from
Emmanuel? I think to add on a little bit, there are some macro factors at the moment that are definitely make Asia more exciting for health tech. I mean, if you look at the, you have the war and you have oil being cut off from Europe and everything going on right now, it actually makes sense to be a bit more overweight Asia in terms of your portfolio. And now, when you have valuations coming down, as we saw in the great HSBC, the presentation just now, you have valuations coming down, and you have things, inflation is happening, but it's still relatively cheap to innovate and iterate in Asia. And so as early stage investors, I feel like we have a good opportunity, especially in these next 5 years, to really find good priced projects and to iterate and develop really quickly for relatively cheaply. And as almost like a hedge against all the big problems that are going on in the rest of the world that Asia is a little bit shielded from. So I don't.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you just said. And I think that there are different dynamics between Asia, more as an emerging market, versus the rest of the world, right? So if you look at Asia, the health protection gap, I think from the last presentation given by Emmanuel, you see the focus there. And the health protection gap in Asia is $1.8 trillion. And yet, if you look at, for example, just in the US, it's almost the other side, which is that there are gaps within the healthcare system, but at the same time, there's also wastage. So there's almost $1 trillion wasted in the US, right? And so there are different sides of the same coin. And in Asia, yeah, I absolutely agree. There are lots of opportunities. And given that Asia is more of a digital first market, that brings even more opportunities in the health tech space.
Thank you. You know, something I'm more interested in is just now you mentioned healthcare coming to the home because it's digital. That is more interesting to me as a user. Access to healthcare is easier. Okay, now let's look at, for the investors, what do they look for in health tech? You know, I want to know what is interesting for the investors if they want to invest in health tech. Maybe who would like to start first to enlighten us on this?
Well, I think we touched lightly already on this. I think some obvious things that all investors look at is, what's the upside? What's the current valuation? How does it compare to the market? How does it compare in terms of its data to the other competitors in the market? We were actually looking at a company as well, and we realized, the data that it has actually is not that great compared to the other data that from other startups we've seen. But maybe, their valuation is more reasonable, and the market and the niche and the revenue traction is better. And so, the price to sales, if it's a revenue generating company, I think that's a very important factor. And of course, the fundamental science, how do you quantify the outcome? How do you quantify the validity and the value of the company, of the technology that they're building? Does it actually reduce your blood sugar levels, BMI, et cetera, which Manulife also has been tracking, as a way to lower your insurance premiums, right? And so Scarlett, yeah.
Yeah, so how we look at investment opportunities. So first, because we're early stage investment fund, so we absolutely look at the team. Right? The team is one of the most important factors in terms of not just understanding the caliber of the team, but also the passion, right? The passion of the founders. You are a very passionate entrepreneur, right? And that's so important in succeeding. And then second, moving to the market perspective. So understanding how big the market actually is, right? Does it actually solve a large unmet need in health? That's really important, right? Grasp the almost like focus on the gaps. And then, coming on to the company level, and we look at health tech more as a business model play. All right, so there's the tech aspect, which is really important, but at the same time, there is the regulatory aspect, there's the clinical aspect, and also there's the business model aspect. And for any health techs to really succeed, you really have to have all these 4 quadrants right. It's actually fairly difficult.
Thanks for the valuable information for us. I'd like to ask you one more question. You see, model is okay, target market is huge, you're growing fast, and you show the traction already. Now, what are the challenges do these companies face as you help them to build up? What do they struggle with? Since you are 2 very experienced person, so I want to tap your knowledge on this.
Yeah, so I think it's all in the details, right? So when we think through the business model, one side is really on the distribution side, right? So how do you actually get your products into the hands of whether they're users or patients? And this pathway is very difficult, right? Whether you're B2C, B2B2C, whether you have to go through the hospitals, the doctors to really reach your patients. So this part is not easy. And on the other hand, it's also again, to the business model point, how do you get paid, right? This is the age-old question, in health tech, which is who's actually going to pay you? Is it pharma? Is it medtech? Is it payers such as Manulife? Is it consumers themselves, right? Or is it, for example, even foundations, pharma companies giving grants, right? So there are various different streams of revenues, but the point is really, how do you actually, first of all, get paid? And second, how do you turn that into a sustainable model going forward? And almost in a way, I say it's SaaSify, almost turning into SaaS a little bit. Not really, actually not quite SaaS, but how do we actually provide the service on a continuous, sustainable basis going forward? So I think, this is very hard, just to work out the distribution and also the payer model.
Thank you. Because of time, I'm going to do one more last question for them. And then, for the sake of interaction with you, you might be seated here with some very hot question that you want to ask these experts. So I allow you one question after this. So what kind of advice you want to give to budding health tech startup founders? How to prepare themselves to do the startup? Maybe you can, who would like to start?
I think an interesting strategy that generally works really well is to reverse engineer what people want to buy, and not just people, but your potential acquirer. Like, okay, I'm building a product. Okay, I want to exit eventually, maybe in 5 to 10 years. Okay, so within that time, what do I foresee would be valuable to acquirers then, and how do I build a product now that they maybe can't do in-house? And I think that's a very, there are some very experienced and deliberate company builders in Boston and Silicon Valley. That's all they do. And you don't need to build a unicorn. You really don't. Usually, as Scarlett was saying, you're seeing exits of around $100, $200, $300 million. Hey, you're starting a company and your first valuation is $30 million. That's 10x. That's great. I'm very happy with that, right? And so I don't need big unicorns. Whereas if you're reverse engineering something that is sellable, that is attractive to a potential acquirer, that's a very good sort of discipline in thinking about how to build your company instead of a big dream about building the next Facebook of whatever. There are very few companies that actually get there, and it's also probably not the best, not the best ROI. You're probably burning a lot of money. You're not profitable for a long time, which some PE firms like, and it's appropriate when the growth trajectory is that fast. But generally, it's not advisable. And so being disciplined and reverse engineering your own exit from the very beginning is something that all startup founders should be very deliberate about thinking. Yeah, Scarlett?
Yeah, I think that is so smart to say that. In fact, I had the same thing in mind, which is think about your exit and think about where you need to be. And I think in addition to that, because health tech is so hard, this is not for the faint of heart for anyone, right? So before you get in, are you passionate enough, right? This is about changing the world. This is not about making a quick buck, right? If you want to do that, do anything but healthcare, right? So look into your passion. Are you set up for this? Are you persistent? Are you passionate enough to actually do this? And then once you get in, you just have to go at it. Right, there's no other way besides just keeping on trying.
I like the word passion, which is very important. So let's give the audience a chance. One question from the audience. Anyone want to have? Anybody has a?
Please wait. We will hand you the mic.
Oh, okay, sorry guys. I wanted to ask you just by curiosity. First, congratulations because. That young, you have achieved an amazing success, and it's good to be already at this level. But have you seen good projects in the last couple of years, for example, in senior tech, geronto tech, in anything related for technology for the seniors, being the market in mainland China so huge? This was my personal curiosity.
Thank you. Maybe who would like to take
You've
that
got a
question?
great portfolio company in this space.
So the question is about elderly care,
Elderly, yeah.
right? Yeah, I think this is a huge space within health tech. In fact, it's one of our focus areas as well. What's going on in the world is that people are aging and people are getting sicker, and we're not turning away from that. So Asia in general, we're seeing that trend, especially in China. So now you actually see the big players, whether it's Ping An now recently putting in lots of money into this space, or whether it's somebody we know, right, building high-end elderly care homes. I think it's a huge space to go into. Timing is everything. If you were doing this 10 years ago, you were too early. If you're doing this now, I think your chances are much, much higher.
Well, why don't you share about that portfolio company, with the elderly at-home
so
monitoring device?
we are actually invested into a UK startup that has it's hardware plus software. And it's a device that can listen, right? It can listen to sounds and converse with the elderly, and also connect with the caregivers, including the children, right? So the children will get the most up-to-date information on the elderly, and also including the risk alerts, right? So the sensors will detect, the elderly has gone to the bathroom for 2 hours without coming out, right? Check it out, right? So it's risk detection, it's care, and it's also health coaching all in one. So we believe that that's the direction that we should really move into for elderly homes and for elderly care.
Yeah, and one of my anchor LPs is HN Group, which is a conglomerate in Macau, and we just built a luxury retirement basically facility specifically for people who don't want to get old, who don't want to get sick, right? That's the pitch, and there are 2 clinics, spa, care facilities, like the whole service you can need. And we were thinking about maybe putting that technology in our hotel rooms, in our units for our members. There's a lot of technology we're looking at into integrating into the Greater Bay Area. And the great thing is that if it's okay in Hong Kong, they're saying now it should be okay in Zhuhai, in Hengqin, in Tianhai, and in a lot of the places in the Greater Bay Area. We have yet to see it become really meaningfully enforced or meaningfully practiced, but it'll happen as soon as the border reopens and business is back. We're very excited to launch projects in the Greater Bay Area with all of our LPs and our network and our support there. And yeah, every day we're opening companies in the Greater Bay Area, basically just to prepare. Once the border is opened, we're full force. And even today, we have staff that are quarantining in between the 2 places, mainland and Hong Kong, all the time. So we're not waiting for things to reopen. We're building the bear, as you say. Yeah.
Interesting. Because I also have a portfolio company targeting the elderly, and it's something along that same line. So maybe I'll pull him aside and talk about it later on. But there's something about COVID-19. Since COVID-19 struck us, if you read Nature, you can see that a lot of white matter in those COVID-19 patients. So the population affected is great. And what I want to say is that opportunities are there. So do something for them, because they will get dementia earlier or other things. So this is something that I read in Nature. Okay, so because of time, I think we have to stop now. And I'm very thankful that we have 2 eminent speakers here to help me in this panel. So thank you to them.